Hey everybody, Slothalopolis and Doc here from the Average Gamer Guys. We are doing some more Blitz deck revisits. In the beta, we actually did really in-depth deck builds for all of the leaders that were available at that time, so excluding Forge and any that are going to come out here soon, but we will bring you those as soon as they come out on the DLC. But we did really in-depth talking about each card. We're gonna do a little bit shorter video today, and on these revisits, we'll keep it a little bit shorter, a little bit more condensed. If you do want to see those really in-depth builds and what we were kind of thinking at that time, check those out. They're going to be in our Halo Wars 2 playlist on this channel. We are going to look a little bit more in depth as far as units. We actually did a unit comparison not long ago. That's actually also in the playlist and the in-depth unit comparison. So we have those for the Banished and for the UNSC. We found a lot of things out in our testing about what units are a little bit better suited for different scenarios. So between that and the changes in the beta, we wanted to revisit and see if we can revamp some of these decks and maybe build them just a little bit more efficiently and get them to do things that we maybe want to focus on a little bit better. So today we're doing Atriox. Doc is actually the designated Atriox user in our builds. So I'm gonna toss things over to him. But real quick, just the big changes in the beta build. We actually had two separate blister backs. We had the standard and the enduring. We went ahead and took the standard out, and we've actually removed the Marauder, the Chopper, and the Banshee. We removed all three of those units just based on the time to kill and the unit comparison that we did, and we'll kind of go a little bit more in depth. But I'll toss it over to you, Doc.
Yeah, so Atriox is probably hands down, probably my favorite, at least banished leader, and probably a tie for overall favorite leader between him and Isabel. Isabel just steals my heart with the Mac Blast, so she gets a little bit of a one up there. But overall, I love this deck. This is probably one of my favorite 2v2 decks to work with Sloth, especially on the banished side. And this deck, how I've set it up, I actually included a leader power this time. So in the beta, I did not have Eradication. I finally threw that in. It is really good. Big fan of that. We'll get to that here in a second. But with this deck, I am running this pretty much as a hard counter deck. So I like Atriox because he has a really nice high top end, a lot of really good units, starting with the Wraith, moving up to Atriox Chosen, that really make this deck tough. But then the lower end side is just for me to always have an option to spawn something in to eliminate whatever they're trying to build. So if they're going vehicles, I'm bringing either of the two hunters in. If they're going air, I'm bringing either of the reavers in. And if they want to spawn in a bunch of small units or infantry, that's where my suicide grunts drop in. So just hard counters. And again, I like this setup for 2v2 with Sloth, mostly because he can kind of buy me the time. I can kind of slowly build a nice little army, some good counters, get a well-balanced small force to hold a point until the point where we've outgained in energy and I'm really pumping out a lot of energy. Then I start to drop in my Wraiths and my Atriox Chosen to really just kind of take over the fight. So not going to cover too much here. Again, Hunters, the Engineer, the Bloodfuel Locust, the Reaver, all great inclusions. The Bloodfuel Locust, guys, as we've said in other videos, it's still broken. I actually had this go 1v1 against a Marauder, and that's actually what had me change and remove the Marauder from this deck. Again, we did those in-depth unit comparisons. We've got an awesome spreadsheet, so go check that out. It's linked in that video. But we just saw the Marauder wasn't doing enough damage, and I literally had a fight go where the Bloodfuel Locust faced off with one of my Marauders, and the Bloodfuel Locust won. Mostly because once my Marauder got through the shield, it wasn't doing any damage to this thing because it was just constantly healing itself with the Siphon ability. So they're still going to, I think they still need to look at it a little bit, but while it's in there, if you're running Banished, in my opinion, you got to use it. Ironclad Hunters, pretty easy inclusion here, the guard ability, and again, I'm trying to make it so that I have multiple options to take down a specific type of unit, so having the two pairs there really works out nice. Suicide Grunts, blast ability is one thing that we've talked in a few other videos about. We are huge fans of this. This is almost, to me, my second leader power. I don't actually have a second leader power, but for me, that's what I'm using this unit for. It's kind of keeping it in my pocket. If I'm coming up against a really tough, maybe they got a point really locked down that we need to get into, I might just sacrifice a unit and then throw these guys in the middle of it and just wipe them out. Or use it kind of in a defensive setup where if they're coming to attack a point, I'll drop these guys in. Hopefully they shoot it, and in the commotion and chaos, they don't notice the blast. And boom, there we go. A huge payoff as far as energy is concerned for 80. Usually I'm taking out 2, 3, 4, 5 units sometimes. So I'm definitely getting the energy payoff there. So definitely a big inclusion. Prowling Reaver and Wraith, you guys know the deal with those. Got to have them in there. The Ironclad Wraith, this is where this deck really starts to shine, especially when you can start pairing a few of these different things up. You get an Ironclad Wraith with the Scorch Mortar ability, its guard, and then obviously its shield set up with, Prowling Reaver and some Ironclad Hunters, and you've got yourself a really well-balanced force that's, one, going to be able to take a lot of damage, and two, is going to not really have a weakness to a whole lot of anything. And so setting it up like that and just having this kind of near the top end makes it an easy inclusion. The Enduring Blisterback, again, we've talked about how much we like Last Stand 3. I actually removed the other Blisterback because I found that the single artillery unit, if managed appropriately, you spawn 1 or 2 of these in, really that's going to do the job. You kind of pair that up, Blisterback with a Bloodfuel Locust, you sit them on OP Ridge, they're going to handle the job just fine by themselves, and that's going to be enough harassment and enough damage that you really don't, in my opinion, need the lower cost Blisterback. And again, here we want to have a high end because honestly our power curve is pretty low. We have 7 cards below 100, and then the Wraith just squeaking in at 110. So you kind of can use this deck in a small energy capacity up front, build up a little bit again until you're getting to those higher energy cost cards a little bit later into the game. Again, Eradication, I'm a big fan of this spell power. I like it. I've actually seen this. I think I want to say they made the individual beams do a little bit more damage from the beta. And obviously, if you're not familiar, this drops in a circle and then closes into the middle and then has a huge blast. This honestly is most of the time gets me a good amount of damage, even if they move outside of the final blast radius, just for the sole fact that those beams are doing some good damage and are hard to get away from. So definitely an inclusion there. And then the reason I like Atriox the most, and Sloth can tell you this 100%, is Atriox is chosen. They did nerf him a little bit. They took some health away from him. Honestly, I think they might have taken a little bit of damage from him, but he still has tremendous range and is just honestly my favorite leader out of all of these guys. And the fact that he's great against everything and can hit everything makes him a very easy inclusion. The shock ability is great. We don't have any real hard statistics on how much it actually decreases, but you can definitely tell when he gets into a group fight, he's definitely causing some chaos with that ability. And then he has that shield as well, so just a little bit of added protection there. So that's really how the deck sets up. I'm a big fan of the Bulletproof Army. And again, we have a nice, pretty staggered, pretty low front end. Again, a lot of really good counter units to set up a good early defense until you can get to those higher energy card costs at the back end. And then Bulletproof for me, honestly, this is one of the tougher starting armies to take down, especially if your opposing starting army has any type of vehicle in it. Honestly, big fan. The Ironclad Hunters, the fact that they take up a lot of that initial damage keeps those 3 infantry units alive. You have the Elite Rangers having to detect, so nothing's really coming in to surprise you. So you really can win those initial fights, which is kind of what we've talked about before, being pretty successful. And then again, are just standard 11-to-1 kind of power ratio that I personally like to run. And that's kind of how the deck sets up. Sloth, I don't know if you had anything else that you wanted to throw out there.
No, this it's just interesting to see a lot of our decks have just changed so drastically from the beta, with all of the changes that have been made both in the beta and what we've realized in our unit comparisons and stuff. I really like doing this, and just if you guys have any other questions, concerns, things need to be changed around, any kind of feedback at all, please do feel free to let us know. We have a really good community so far, and guys that have really helped us out along the way. I mean, we've grown so exponentially here lately that it's really cool. We wanna continue to hear from you guys. So thoughts on this deck, please do let us know. In-depth analysis, like we said before, we do have the beta build, and we also do have the unit comparison, in-depth stuff too that you are more than welcome to check out. We have a nice little spreadsheet and everything.
Yeah, we love hearing the feedback. Absolutely, all the positive comments are awesome. But honestly, we welcome the comments where you don't always agree, just to kind of get that discussion going and see what you guys are thinking too. We're obviously not the experts. We're just passionate and we put some good time in. So, like Sloth said, let us know down in the comments. Maybe you got a completely different build. Maybe you like to set Atriox up a completely different way. So I'd love to hear those as well. But yeah, we'll leave you here again. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and follow us on Twitter. We got a lot of other stuff that we're looking at doing, a lot of other multiplayer stuff, looking at the other modes, more Blitz tips and deck guides coming out as well. So just make sure you're linked in and get all of that stuff. I've been Doc, that's been Sloth. We're Average Gamer Guys. Thank you so very much for checking this one out. We'll check you next time.